You're listening to the Ranger Football Podcast, brought to you by Southern Trading and Pawn and the Slab in Roland.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ranger Football Podcast. This is week 7 for the high school. I don't know what week this is for the youth league, but we've got the playoffs coming up. We're going to talk about that here in just a little bit. Also, we've got the high school game against Heavener coming up this week. So we're going to be talking about the Heavener Wolves a little bit. We played the Stigler Panthers last week. We've got some stats on that as well. And one thing that I noticed that I didn't do before we jumped on here was I did not bring up my sponsor information. That's kind of something that needs to be done. Let me go ahead and pop that studio page down. That way I don't have to look at the timer. I don't like a timer when we do these shows. So I'm going to bring open, yeah, there it is. Okay, So we've got all of our information in front of us now. I'd like to remind everybody, like I don't know this by heart, we are live on Spreaker.com. You can subscribe to us also on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Stitcher Radio, and iHeartRadio. Just wherever you are, type in Ranger Football Podcast, and you're bound to find us. We're everywhere. Also, if you're on Facebook, go to your search bar, type in Ranger Podcast Network. Go ahead and like that page. That is the official Facebook page of the Ranger Podcast Network and the Ranger Football Podcast. Also, we're going to be parlaying this into the Ranger Basketball Podcast coming up for the upcoming basketball season. I have talked with head girls basketball coach Greg Pratt, and he is all about it. He's on board with this. He loves the exposure that our kids get and our school gets, and it's going to be a great thing. So go ahead and like that Facebook page. Also, I noticed I don't think we have a Facebook page for our high school football team. I know we've got the Roland Quarterback Club, so you can like that page as well. And then you can type in Roland Youth League Football, and you can like that page. So you can keep up to date with all the latest news and information on Roland Youth League Football, aside from this lovely podcast that we do. So I'm looking on the Roland Youth League Football page as we speak, and late last night there was some information updated by our Youth League Director, Anthony DeWitt, and so I'm going to bring that news to you here in just a moment. I'm sure, now I'm looking on Facebook, only about 50 people have seen this so far. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break it down. Like I said, we've got the playoffs coming up. That's a beautiful thing. So let's take care of the people who pay our bills. And I'd like to remind you that the Ranger Football Podcast has an app on Google Play. So if you have an Android device, get on your Google Play store, type in Ranger Football Podcast, download the app. That is sponsored by Southern Trading and Pawn. They are located at 4621 Towson Avenue, right on the corner of Towson and Phoenix. That's in Fort Smith. Stop by and see Vernon and the crew for all your trading and pawn needs. If you have questions, call 479-434-4830. Also, if you have an Apple device, like an iPhone or a WePod or a iPad or all this stuff, these gadgets and trinkets we have today, go to your Apple App Store, download the Ranger Football Podcast app. That is sponsored by The Slab in Roland. That's located at 104 South Roland Road. The Slab is the home of the best barbecue in the River Valley. I guarantee. They're open 7 days a week, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., getting blown up. We've got several people listening live. I need to get an accurate count, but people are already shooting messages. I don't know if you could hear that. Maybe not. My phone is going off as we speak. Let me get back to the hours. The Slab is open 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Saturday. Also 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. on Sunday. And the trailer, the Slab trailer, That's where you get all that good grub. Everybody knows about that trailer. It's open from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. Wednesday through Friday. So, as always, when we do the Ranger Football Podcast, the very next day is when the slab trailer is opening up for the week. Also, remember, catering is available by request. If you have questions or to place your orders today, call 918-503-6531. Also, we are sponsored by Mantees Casual Wear, focused on the adolescent male of all ages, and by Mayrays for casual wear with a more feminine touch. That one's for the ladies. Custom orders are welcome. You can follow both lines on Facebook or simply go to man-tees.com. And always use the promo code RANGERS for 20% off your orders. Last but not least, we have the Center Street Parlor located at 1731 West Center Street in Greenwood, Arkansas. They are open Tuesday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to just whenever they finish. For more information or to schedule an appointment for your next tattoo, call Fernie or Isaac at 479-252-6274. Also, don't forget Lewis Heating and Air Conditioning. You can visit their page on Facebook at A Lewis HVAC. Doze will send somebody out. Mike Bean came out and worked on my unit, and it is pumping cold air like a champ. We all know that the warm temperatures are back. I don't know how long this is supposed to last, but they're still here. So if you have a problem with your air conditioning, call Lewis Heating and Air Conditioning. You might want to get your furnace checked out, too, because the cold weather is fixing to hit. No telling when. It'll probably come and go a little bit, and then it'll be here to stay. But I think we're going to have a pretty cold winter coming up. So call Lewis Heating and Air Conditioning at 479-629-0560, and they will get you hooked up. Now, going back to football, we played Stigler this past week, and I'm going to tell you something. We watched a kid that he was just phenomenal. He was phenomenal. I don't care who you're a fan of. If you're a fan of Roland or Stigler, you can't help but just appreciate how this kid played ball. Beautiful gameplay. Garrett Brooks is a senior at Stigler. Now, up through the first 5 games of the season, he had already broken the Stigler High School single-season rushing record for yards in a season. Through 5 games, this kid. Now, you get into the Roland game. We go up there for Stigler for homecoming. We start playing these guys. Now, we come out, honestly, we came out slam-banging in the first half. But like always, we scored all of our points in the first quarter, and then we stopped. So I know that now that since this is a pattern, I know that Coach Strine and the coaching staff are going to be working on this, how we can start pushing more points through the rest of the game. We don't need to come out and just give it all we've got in the first quarter, and then we can't let off the gas. There's no letting off the gas in football. The only time you let off the gas is when the town you play in is in the rearview mirror. That's when you let off the gas. Then it's time to settle down. But we watched Garrett Brooks. This kid ran the ball 27 times. 27 times. He scored 3 touchdowns on the ground. He ran for 273 yards just in our game. I mean, this kid was everywhere. Every time he picked up the ball, every time the quarterback, Turrentine, every time he stuck it in his gut, boom, Brooks was gone. I mean, it was amazing to see. He was a great football player. I'm glad our boys got to play against him. And believe it or not, no matter how many yards he put up, we did contain him a few times. So, we got some good reads on where he was going, and we plugged a few holes, made a few tackles, and that's the way it went. So, getting into the stats, I'm going to run down a few stats from this past week. Obviously, we came out just a little bit short. Stigler won this ball game 27-12. Going into the half, I mean, the second quarter was a shootout for defense. I mean, it was a beautiful defensive display by both teams. You could tell during the bye week that the Rangers worked on some things that, maybe through the first 4 games we hadn't quite worked on yet. And that's going to happen. The first few weeks of the season, we're going to have a lot of field rust. We need to knock off these guys, and we'll get back to action. So we came out in the first quarter. We scored 12 points in this game. Stigler scored 13, and that's how we went into the half. Like I said, the second quarter was a defensive shootout, and we kept pinning Stigler back in their own territory. They kept pinning us back in our own territory. But we played well. I mean, coming up to a game with a 5-0 team, you know, a lot of people I talked to on the way to the game were like, man, this is going to be a bloodbath. And I'm like, why do you say it's going to be a bloodbath? You never know what type of game this is going to be. Not everybody. Stigler's not going to play the same way against us that they have played against everybody else. And here's how you know. For those of you who listened to the last episode of the Ranger Football Podcast, one thing I said in that episode was nobody has held Stigler to less than 38 points in a game. Or maybe it's 39. Can't remember. It's one of the two. But Roland did that. We did that. Our defense, I'm telling you, our defense looked great in this game. We've given up more than 27 points in a game. So to face a team who's 5-0, like Stigler, who's got a guy that's rushing for nearly 300 yards a game, to hold them to 27 points, phenomenal. I couldn't have asked for a better performance. However, our offense, we have got to work on moving the ball on offense. Eli Dalton, 37 pass attempts. He completed 20 of those, about a 541 completion percentage. He had about 10.8 yards, 2 touchdowns in the air, and a 78 quarterback rating. So, then you go into rushing. Jacob Cantrell, he had 5 carries for 2 yards, 0 touchdowns. L.J. Williams, 7 carries for 32 yards. Eli Dalton, 8 carries for 5 yards. So that's a total of 39 yards on the ground. That's not a lot. That's some things we need to work on is our run game. We have got to work on the run game. Our longest rush was 12 yards the entire game. And like I said, 0 touchdowns on the ground. So that kind of hurt us a little bit. However, you get into the receiving, that's where number 13, Julius Plummer, did what he always does, and he shined like a diamond in the rough. 2 touchdowns. His longest catch was 27 yards. Julius was all over the field. I could have named several times we could have hit him on the left side, and I think we would have been okay. But he had 5 receptions for 59 yards. Jackson Wells, another kid who just bangs it out. And Logan Wolf, too. I mean, these kids are made out of nails and gravel, I think, at sometimes. 8 carries for Jackson Wells, 64 yards. His longest was 19. Pardon me. Logan Sargent had 1 carry for 13 yards. Jacob Cantrell, 1 reception for 2 yards. Did I say carry a second ago? We're talking about receptions. L.J. Williams had 3 receptions for 56 yards. And, in fact, L.J. had 1 for 52. I mean, he took off. I think it was toward the end of the game, third or fourth quarter, somewhere in there. These quarters were just – there was so much football happening. But L.J., a pass went out to him, and he took off with it, 52 yards. Logan Wolf, 2 catches for 22 yards. 13 was his longest. And like I said, Julius Plummer was the only receiver for the Rangers who put 1 in the end zone, and he put 2 in the end zone. So that's kind of how things turned out with Stigler. 27-12 was the final there. Stigler won that. They are now 6-0. But it was a great defensive stand for us. I mean, to just lose by a couple touchdowns, a lot of people would say, well, anytime you lose by a couple touchdowns, that's not a very good game. Well, for us it is. Not everybody understands Roland is in the rebuilding process. Just a couple of years ago was the big playoff run, and things have kind of transitioned since a couple of seasons ago. We've already matched as many wins as we had last year, and we're on pace for another win this week. We play the Heavener Wolves. Now, we're not just on pace for another win because they're 0-6. Heavener has not won a game yet. They've lost 6 in a row. That is their current streak. But, they're still a tough team. They've got a kid named Connor Place, number 24. He's a senior. He is leading in rush yards. He's also almost nearly – let me scroll down here. He's nearly in the lead for receiving yards as well. Let's see. Yeah, they've got a junior wide receiver, number 20. He's got 272 yards on the year. And Connor Place, number 24, guys, football players, listen to this podcast. I know you do. Remember these names and numbers. Number 24, Connor Place. Write this down. I don't care what you have to do. Dream about the number 24 in purple for the next few days if that's what it takes. But this kid's all over the field. I'm telling you. I've seen highlight videos from Heavener football, and Connor Place is everywhere. He's everywhere. It's like a Visa card. Or, I don't know. Maybe that's an airline. I don't know. Somebody who used that back in the day. Nobody knows. Something. So, in Heavener, like I said, they're not a bad football team. Receiving yards per game, they're a little bit less than the national average. They're only at 109 yards per game. Rushing yards, they're averaging almost 100 a game. They have 7 total touchdowns. 49.8 tackles per game. That's something we have to look out for because they're right neck and neck with the national average. Now, the thing about the rest of their defense, this is also something we have to look out for. So football players take note of this too. All season, you couldn't tell this by their win-loss record, Heavener has 25 sacks on the year. 25 sacks in 6 games. That is sky high above the national average. Also, their interceptions. They've got 1 interception per game. So I can tell you right now, they're going to be looking to get to Eli Dalton. They're going to be looking to get to him. So, we've seen some of the issues we've had with the offensive line. We saw Eli Dalton scramble for his life against Stigler, and every other game before that, he has suffered a concussion. So we've got to tighten up on our offensive line. That's another thing I keep talking about on the podcast every single week. Our offensive line, we got to go the same direction. We have to know who we're blocking, and we can't hold them in the process unless we know something bad's going to happen. And then, sometimes a flag is going to fly, but that's okay. So, we just communication is number one with that offensive line. I sat a couple of Saturdays ago at a youth league game with one of our linemen on the football team, and he will remain nameless because he asked to be that way. But he said that's definitely one thing that they're working on. I asked him a lot of questions, and I said, what's one thing you guys are working on the line? He said communication. We just have to communicate better. So I know that's something that the coaching staff is encouraging with our line. That's something that they're working on. And like I said, during the bye week, we made huge strides. I can tell. Everybody can tell. There's pretty much consensus around Roland. I've had a lot of people say, hey, man, what'd you think about the game? And we talk about the exact same thing. I can't believe our defense did as well as they did. You look at Garrett Brooks for Stigler running the ball all over the place. We still kept them in check as best we could, and we did a great job at it. So, 27 points for an undefeated team doesn't sound like a whole lot. But we just have to work on a few things on offense, and we'll be able to overcome. So, we're looking at a stout Heavener defense. I know Heavener hasn't won a game. I've said it. I'm going to say it again. You can't tell by their win-loss record, but they are not going to be a walk in the park. If people are going to look at this game and say, okay, Coach Martin is bringing Heavener into town, they are 0-6. This is going to be our second win of the season. We can't do that. We cannot have that type of mentality thinking that we're just going to beat Heavener just because they're winless. You guys have seen on the Ranger Football Podcast page or the Ranger Podcast Network page on Facebook the title shot that came out here for the week about the podcast. There is nothing more dangerous than a team with no wins. A totally defeated team. Guys, there's nothing to lose for the Heavener Wolves. They're going to come out just banging in the first half. I know they are. They're going to have things they're working on in the second half. They're going to talk about things at halftime. Then they're going to come out, and it's all going to make, these big talks in the locker room and strategies and things that they work on. They're going to try to make all that worthwhile. So, that's one thing we cannot underestimate Heavener. We have to come out and play solid football on both sides of the ball. We know that. Our kids know that. Our fans know that. But, it's just something to talk about. So that's where we're at with our high school football team. I'm hoping for our second win of the season. We cannot just come out expecting it. We cannot be cocky about this. But that's something we can hope for. So hopefully we come out of this. Right now the Rangers are 1-4, so hopefully we come out 2-4 after the end of this week, and I believe it's homecoming. I've seen a few things on Facebook. I don't have the schedule with the details on it for which games are which. I know we've got a homecoming and then another away game, and then we have like senior night and band night and all that good stuff. But I think this week is homecoming. If somebody could shoot me a message and confirm that. Well, I don't know. I'm not going to wait for that, but it could happen. So there's going to be a lot of festivities. So this is the part where we encourage everybody in the town of Roland to put your orange and black on and get out to the football stadium on Friday night. The game is supposed to start at 7 p.m. You know there's going to be, if it's homecoming, there's going to be festivities going on way before that. I heard there's going to be Maggie Sheffield's going to have her photo trailer out there. She's going to be taking pictures. And so, we'll have to give that a shot. That's a great way to support local businesses and small business owners. It's a great thing. And I'm sure there will be other things as well. But, right now I don't have a list of all the things that are going to be going on. I wish somebody would get that to me. I don't even know who could get that to me. But, folks, all you have to do is get on the Ranger Podcast Network page on Facebook, like the page, shoot me a message. Just be like, hey, Clint, can you talk about this? Can we go over a few things on the podcast? That way everybody gets to hear about this stuff. And for those of you who listen all the time, I'm going to say it again. We have between 600 and 700 people a week who listen to this show, sometimes over 700. But on average, 600 to 700 people a week. That's way higher than I thought we would have. Way higher. Not even going to lie. Didn't think this was going to blow over too well as far as, hanging up a half 1,000 on the ratings. But it is. It's well above that. So, anytime something needs to be, advertised, publicized, anything, get a hold of me on Facebook. Let me know, especially about festivities going on, if there's any fundraisers or, extra stuff going on, and we'll talk about it. So, speaking of that, I want to ask everybody out there for a favor. On Saturday, Roland Youth League football. We're going to switch gears here. Roland Youth League football, we are hosting the first week of the playoffs. Now, I'm going to read you what our Youth League director, Anthony DeWitt, put on the Youth League football page. It says, hey, don't know if y'all heard yet, but Roland Youth League football will be hosting home games. Obviously hosting home games. He didn't write home. I just added that in there. For every grade this weekend. 3 home playoff games is huge for our boys and great for our league. I hope to see the stands full of Ranger fans cheering on these boys. Roland, 1st and 2nd grade team, will be hosting Atoka. That's a big drive. Roland, 3rd and 4th grade, will be hosting Quinton. That's a big drive. Not so much of a big drive, but big enough for a Saturday morning. Roland, 5th and 6th grade, will be hosting Tallahena. Now, these are going to be huge games. These are teams from the other side of the bracket who were in our conferences that we have, and so we're going to be facing these teams in the first round of the playoffs. It's going to be big. So what I might need a little volunteer. You can either get a hold of me and get a hold of our Youth League director, Anthony DeWitt. We want to find a grill master for the game on Saturday. We're thinking about cooking up some hot dogs and hamburgers, like a big tailgate party down there by the, in front of the concession stand, and having somebody cook. So if that's something you can do, if you've got a grill, if you've got the means to do it, maybe a big propane tank or something like that, or if you like to do charcoal or whatever. Some people just like the propane, Bobby. But we just need a grill master to come out. And so get a hold of Anthony DeWitt or get a hold of me, and I'll get a hold of him, and we'll work out the details. And if all the stars align, we'll be able to have hamburgers and hot dogs, plus all the great concession stand food that we have, all the candies and chips and pops and Gatorades and nachos. I'm getting hungry. But that's what we're going to be doing on Saturday. So not only on Friday night, are we going to be facing Heavener at home. This is our second home game of the season for our high school boys. And, we just need everybody, as many people as possible, to come out to these games and support them. And then turn right back around Saturday morning. I don't think we have – down at the bottom of this, he says, I'm in the process of locking down game times. Hope to have that information out by tomorrow evening. So at press time at I don't know what time it is now. What time is it? Somebody bring a clock up. What are we, 11:25 or something? As of right now, we don't have game times, but possibly could be, around 11 o'clock in the morning when the first game kicks off. Don't know that yet. That's not a fact. Don't write that part down. Don't quote me on it. So that's not a guarantee, but we will find out at some point from our Youth League Director, Anthony DeWitt, what time these games are going down. So that's first and second grade. We'll be hosting Atoka. The third and fourth grade will be hosting Quinton, and the fifth and sixth grade will be hosting Tallahena. And like I said, these are big drives for everybody. So, parents and everybody, if you run into people from these places at the ball game, just welcome them to Ranger Stadium and let's be friendly and let's come out and watch some football. Throw some rocks in a can, get your noisemakers and your shakers and your bring grandma out. Dress everybody up in orange and black so we know where everybody's faith is and where their loyalty lies. And that way we can cheer our Rangers on to a win. I'm banking on 4 wins this weekend. That's what I'm calling for. The high school team, we're going to beat Heavener on Friday night, and then we've got our first and second grade, third and fourth grade, fifth and sixth grade. We're going to put Atoka, Quinton, and Tallahena out of the playoffs, and we're going to move on to the second round. So as of right now, that's all the information I've got. I appreciate everybody for listening and for coming back for another week. We've had, 10 weeks in a row now? We've had some successful podcasts. We've had a lot of people listening, and I appreciate it. I'll never figure out why people listen to me, but when we put out information about football, it seems to be worth it. So that's going to do it for this week. Until we have more information, pay attention, please, to Roland Youth League Football on Facebook. Pay attention to that page, like it, and you'll get all the updates on your news feed, and we'll find out when the game times are. 7 p.m. Friday night, that's when the high school Rangers play. Heavener's coming to town, homecoming night. Be there, and until we have more information, we will see you next week on the Ranger Football Podcast.
You're listening to the Ranger Football Podcast, brought to you by Southern Trading and Pawn and the Slab in Roland.